For those of you who have been following my journey on my channel, I moved to London back in the summer of 2023 and have been loving it so much. London has consistently ranked in the top 10 most expensive cities to live in the world for the past few years. And after living here for over a year and a half now, I can definitely say that that is true. I knew when I moved here that it would be expensive, of course, but you don't really realize how expensive it'll be on a day-to-day basis until you live here. So I'm going to talk about all the main categories of expenses nearly everyone will have: rent, bills, transportation, and food. I'll give you the total of all of that together and then divide it by 2 at the end to show how much each of us pay, so you can kind of plan accordingly whether you plan on living alone or if you plan on moving here with a partner or friend to split things with. So let's first talk about your biggest expense, which is going to be rent. If you saw my video about London cost of living in 2023 or my apartment tour video from my first apartment when I first moved here, you'll know that I used to live in a 450 square foot 1-bedroom apartment in Hammersmith, which is zone 2, so it's pretty central, and it was $17.50 a month, which is roughly $21.80 US per month. But after the first year, they were going to raise our rent to $18.50, and we knew we were expecting a baby, so we just wanted more room and we wanted to have that 2-bedroom. So now we are much further from the city center, out in zone 5, paying $19.50 for a 680 square foot 2-bedroom apartment with a garden. So that's roughly $24.30 US. So of course, for the purpose of this video, I'm going to be totaling up all of my personal expenses to show you the grand total at the end. But do know that if you are okay with a smaller 1-bedroom apartment, it'll probably be around $18.50 per month. But for our grand total, we'll add my rent cost, which is $19.50 here in 2025. Now let's get into the bills. And first I want to talk about the most expensive bill and something that Americans are not used to paying, so they might be confused if they move over here. It's called council tax. This is a tax that is used to pay for services like schools, trash and recycling collections, libraries, the police, fire, and so much more for your borough or your small neighborhood within London. So it means that depending on which borough you live in will depend on how much council tax you pay. The boroughs are categorized by bands. Band A pays the least amount of council tax, which is $13.92 per year, and it goes all the way to Band H, which pays a whopping $41.76 per year. So honestly, this is a huge expense no matter which band you're in. But last year we were in Band B and now we're in Band E, so it's a huge increase. Band E is a little over £2,190 for the year, plus an additional fee that we did not know about for living in the Greater London Authority area, which is £576, which brings the annual total for council tax and this fee to £2,776. So the monthly cost for this is roughly £231 or about $288 US. So it is quite hefty. Then we have electricity and gas, which we now pay together as one payment, and it's roughly £100 per month. And just keep in mind, this includes us running our radiator pretty much all day during the winter, so it's not terrible in my opinion. Next we have water, which is about £35 per month, which in my opinion is super high. Like, that's just to turn on your water faucet. When we used to live in Austin, Texas, it was $7 a month for water, and now paying £35, which is about $44 US, is just insane to me. Then we have Wi-Fi, which is £26 a month for 132 Mbps download and 20 upload, so that's roughly $32 US. Then my phone plan. So I have an iPhone 14, which doesn't have a physical SIM card slot. So it actually was really hard to find an eSIM here. I was kind of shocked since at the time the iPhone 14 had already been out for nearly a year when I was looking for this. I ended up going with Lyca Mobile, which I'd say is very similar to like a Cricket Wireless back in the States. So definitely not one of the main phone providers, which are O2, Vodafone, and 3. The 3 main providers I just listed only have eSIMs if you sign a 1-year contract, which I did not want to do. And I also didn't have a bank account at the time. So I went with Lyca Mobile, which is £10 a month, no contract, which includes unlimited texts and calls and 20 gigabytes of data per month, which is crazy to me. I don't think you could find anything close to that price in the States, especially as an individual. It's usually always cheaper in the US if you have a group of 4 or more on a plan. Now let's move on to the transportation category. If you live in London, you are most likely going to be using public transportation. You use contactless pay like Apple Pay or even just a tap to pay card. You don't need to buy an Oyster card or print out a ticket at the station. For the tube, which is what we would call the metro or the subway back in the States, You tap your payment at the tills when you enter, and then you tap it when you exit, and you'll be charged based on how many zones you have crossed, which you can see on the zone map on the screen now. If you cross one zone, the standard fare for off-peak is $190, or during peak is $210. Peak times are Monday through Friday, so the commuter times, 6:30 to 9:30 a.m. and 4 to 7 p.m. If you cross two zones during off-peak, it's £3 and peak is £3.70. And of course, it continues to increase from there. You can check out how much it'll cost on the TfL website in advance, otherwise you won't know until you just check your credit card statement later on. For the bus, you tap your payment when you hop on the bus, and it's a flat fee of $175 no matter how many zones you cross. So how much will you spend monthly? That's hard to say because it really depends on how many days you have to commute to work, how many zones you have to cross on the weekends, or obviously getting to work as well. So for me, I commute 2 days a week, crossing 2 zones on the train for 1 stop, and then the tube for 2 stops. So that's unfortunately 2 different payments. So it's during peak times and it's £7.60 a day. Plus on the weekend, I usually head into zone 1 for fun activities, which again is 4 zones on the train and off peak. So about $4.20 each way. So for the month, my average is probably about £70 on public transportation. If you are a student, you can apply for a student Oyster card, which will give you 30% off all weekly and monthly transportation passes. So it definitely is worth it and will help you save a bit of money. And now for the last category, food. Again, this one is hard because it depends on your lifestyle. We cook our own food literally every day. The only time we really go out to eat is if we have weekend plans with friends. We normally never go out to eat, just the 2 of us, because we are desperately trying to replenish our savings accounts that are drained just from moving here. But with that in mind, we spend on average about £105 a week on groceries. And I'd say an average meal, if you were to go out to eat, would be about £15 to £20 per person. Of course, it can be more expensive than that or cheaper if you just grab like a kebab or something. But I'd say the average meal price would be around £15 to £20. So if you get groceries and let's say go out to eat twice a week, that's a monthly total of £660 for 2 people for the month. And last thing I'm gonna mention is a gym membership, which I know a lot of people are curious about. I personally have a membership at a local leisure center, so it includes a lot more than just a gym. It also has tennis courts, a pool, spa, sauna, cafe, and classes that you can sign up for as well. And it's £40 a month. The cheapest gym chain that I know of is Pure Gym, which is £28 a month. So if you have one nearby or just looking to save some money, you can opt to do that one instead. I know a lot of other cost of living videos will add in subscriptions like Netflix, Amazon Prime, all of those things, plus a budget for partying or doing fun things on the weekend, but each person is so different and their lifestyles are so different. So I'd rather just give you the base monthly cost, and then from there you can add on other expenses based on your own lifestyle. So let's total up everything for the grand total for 2 people. We have $19.50 for rent, $231 for council tax, $100 for gas and electricity, $35 for water, $26 for Wi-Fi, $20 for 2 phone plans, $140 for transportation for 2 people, $660 for food for 2 people, and $80 for 2 gym memberships, which gives us a whopping total of £3,222, or roughly $4,012 per month. So let's divide that by 2 to get the individual cost of living if you are living with someone, and that's £1,611, or roughly $2,006 per month. So keep that in mind. This is just the bare minimum cost of living. So keep in mind your lifestyle, shopping, paying for fun activities, or even if your food bill is going to be way higher, you pretty much will use this number just as like your starting point, and then you'll keep adding from here, unfortunately. So as you can tell, having a partner to split everything with is an absolute must in London. I could 100% not afford to live here without Nick, but either way, it still is a very expensive city. So if you are planning on moving here, you really do need to have some savings or a high-paying job to live comfortably. Now let's compare this with the cost of living in Austin, Texas, where you'll have a much bigger and more modern apartment for a fraction of the cost.